How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I've gotten a lot of questions on how to winterize or store your outdoor power equipment during the non-use season. And here in the Midwest, the fall is pretty much over with. All of the leaves that are going to fall in a reasonable time period have all been picked up and taken care of. So why not go ahead and demonstrate my winterization process on my John Deere 125 automatic riding lawnmower. What we're going to do is start from the front of the mower all the way to the back, making sure that we cover all of the essentials so that way come summertime when the snow melts and we're ready to start cutting the grass, we can go ahead, fire right up, and have no issues going forward. So we'll touch on some things such as changing the engine oil out, and this lawnmower also has an engine oil filter, so we'll get that taken care of as well. We will also take out our spark plugs, change those guys out, examine our air filter, our engine air filter, just to see if we need to replace it. I changed it last season, so it should still be okay, but we'll go ahead and just examine it just to be safe. We will also go ahead, drain all of our fuel out, and add any stabilizer to any remaining fuel that's left in the system, just so that way our carburetors aren't gummed up and they're nice and clean. And then lastly, we'll go ahead, take our battery off of our lawnmower, store it inside in a nice warm environment. That way, come summertime, all we have to do is add fuel, throw the battery in, and start it back up. And for the battery, we will be going ahead and throwing that on a trickle charger, maybe the night before we're going to get ready to put it back in the lawnmower. So let's go ahead and get started with engine oil. So I just ran this lawnmower, so it should still be nice and warm. But you'll notice that down here we have our oil drain. I'll get zoomed in on that later. And if we come around to the other side, we have our engine oil filter. So I'm gonna go ahead on the other side and drain the oil first, and then I'll go ahead and change the filter after that. We got our newspaper lined on the ground. We have our wheels turned and our oil drain pan kind of wedged in there. So we'll go ahead, zoom in, and that's the plug that we're going to have to remove. So go ahead and get to it. So the nice thing about this is that this cap is just a quarter turn and pull out from this pipe over here that comes out of the engine. But the only thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you don't just start unscrewing this, because if this cap is on really tight to this pipe, you'll just be unscrewing this entire assembly from the engine block, and the oil won't come out here, it'll actually come out further back towards the engine. So we'll go ahead with one hand, hold the pipe tight, and then with the other hand do the quarter turn and pull. So there's the quarter turn, and might be a little tight on there, but you just have to pull and go. There we go. So we'll go ahead, we'll let that drain, and we'll also unscrew the oil cap that's on top here just to get a little bit faster flow, as you can see right there. So go ahead, let that drain, and we'll go on the other side for the oil filter. And I'll go ahead and give you guys a little bit of detail on that cap. So as you can see right there, we have this L-shaped channel in here, and there's a pin on the actual drain itself, and what you do is slide it on and twist it, and it locks that pin into place in that L shape. So while we get that guy drained out, we will go ahead, clean this up, and you'll also want to inspect the rubber O-ring that's around your drain right there, because that's what seals the oil from the cap and prevents any leaks. So go ahead and inspect that guy, make sure there are no cracks or any signs of wear, and if you're all set, you go ahead and just screw this cap right back on. And so we'll hop onto the other side of the lawnmower, and we just have to go ahead and unscrew our oil filter. This will make a big mess just because we don't have this overhang sitting beyond the frame, so you will get some oil on here. Just make sure that you have your newspaper on the ground, you have your oil drain pan as close as you can get to it, And because my hands have a little bit of oil on them just to make them slick enough to not be able to twist that guy off, we go ahead and use our oil filter wrench to get this guy off. You see what I mean? Nice little mess we got going for us. But that's no worries. We'll get that nice and cleaned up. We'll go ahead, take our new engine oil filter, get a little bit of oil around this rubber seal. Just a little bit around the threads too. And you'll want to look at your mating surface right here. Ours is nice and clean. Sometimes if you leave your oil filter on too long and you go ahead and take that off, this gasket will actually stick onto the engine block itself, so you're just going to want to make sure you have a nice clean surface on there to mount up to. So go ahead, screw this guy on. And you're not going to want to do this too tight, you're just going to want to do it nice and hand tight. Luckily we're in a nice area to grip it, so I think that's nice and good. We have a nice area that we can easily access it with a wrench. If you guys have seen the Firebird video, you'll know that that's not in the nicest place, and we do have to do a little bit of destruction to get the filter off if it is too tight. So go ahead, keep this guy nice and hand tight. Don't worry if it is too tight come next season, just because we can easily get our oil filter wrench on there. So with the oil out, we're going to go ahead, clean up our area, and then we're able to fill the engine with brand new clean oil. And as always, make sure you guys are recycling your engine oil. Most auto parts stores and recycling centers do take this stuff back, so just make sure you put it in a nice container. And as we pour it out, we can see, aside from a leaf that got caught in there that we pulled in, our oil is looking dirty but clear. And what I mean by that is I don't see any metal flakes in our oil, which is good. Our engine is wearing at a proper rate and we don't have to worry about too much grinding parts on each other. So go ahead, get this cleaned up and add our oil. And here's our engine for a reference. It's a Briggs & Stratton 20 horsepower V-twin. This guy takes 2 quarts of 10W30. So we will go ahead, set you guys down, and add the new oil. Go ahead, insert our dipstick, clean it off. You can see, at least I can try to bring it in up as we drip. We are right in the full line, so go ahead, cap it up. So our air filter is underneath this cover, and you just have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these screws that you have to undo. Once you get that done, we can go ahead and take a look. And yeah, it's pretty dirty. I think just to be safe going into the new season, I'll run to the store and pick up a new one of these guys and replace it. Okay, next we are on to spark plugs. So this will apply since we have a 2-cylinder engine to both sides. We have 2 spark plugs. If you have a smaller lawnmower, you may only have 1, but you'll want to look for this rubber lead and a rubber boot coming from your engine. So pop that off. And you want to take a spark plug socket. So you'll see that this is basically like a deep socket. It's hard to see in there, but there's a little piece of foam that goes around your spark plug tip right there, and that just prevents it from cracking the ceramic. So go ahead, get this guy on, and take this off. So you loosen it. I like to try not to force these guys, so once you get through the initial loosening, go ahead and just do the rest by hand. And as you guys can see, we have a little bit of blackness on here, and that just means we have a little bit of excessive carbon, so we might be running a little bit too rich, or our air filter is a little too dirty. And as we saw before, there was a little bit of dirt and debris on there. So we'll go ahead and swap that guy out for a nice clean plug. So same thing applies in reverse. You'll want to go ahead and start by hand, threading this guy in. You also want to check the gap. I did that off camera just to make sure that you're within specification. So get this guy in hand tight. You don't want to cross thread these guys. Ask me how I know. Once you get that there, you'll go ahead, connect your ratchet, and just do a nice hand tight, just so it's nice and snug. Nothing too crazy. You don't want to get this guy in there too tight. Connect up your boot, and you're ready to go. So we did one side. I'll do the other side off camera, and then we'll tackle the fuel system. So we are back in garage number 2 in our lawnmower's nice parking spot, and we're going to take care of our last two things. One being the fuel, which, if you guys can see our fuel level right there, we are very low, but that's a good thing. It's just less fuel for us to have to siphon out. And then after that, we'll take care of disconnecting the battery and then putting a cover on this guy just to keep it relatively clean and try to keep it warm. So go ahead, get you on a stand and get the fuel cleaned out. So in order to drain our gas, we just have a couple of things that we need. First, in the bottom left hand corner right there, you're going to see our fuel tank. Make sure you have enough room in there as you transfer the fluid out. As you guys saw in the previous shot, this lawnmower doesn't have that much gas in it, so we should be okay. And the other thing you're going to want is a siphon pump. And I've had a couple in my days, like the bulb style ones where you have to squeeze it and then the fluid transfers, but the one that I found recently to be the most effective is this Pennzoil branded one. I got this guy on Amazon. I'll go ahead and throw a link in the description just so that way you guys can take a look at it. Comes with a couple of different clear fuel lines as well as some air lines in case you want to use this as a bicycle pump or a handheld pump like that. But so far this guy's worked really well. I highly recommend it, and we'll go ahead and get to it. So let's take our seat, flip it up in order to get to our fuel tank. I'm going to take the cap off, set that aside, and when it comes to connecting up the pump, what you'll see is that you have this white tab right here. It's like a quick release, so just go ahead, do that, fit it inside, and then release, and this guy is not going anywhere. So we'll do that on both ends and then get to it. So it's important to note when siphoning out the gas that on the top right here is where we're siphoning from, and then the bottom goes to the tank itself. So go ahead, a couple pumps, and then let the system drain. So while we weren't able to get all of the gas out, I mean, I got as much out as I could. For safe measure, we're going to throw in an ounce of stable. It says that it covers about up to 2.5 gallons with 1 ounce. So just to be safe, we'll put a little bit of that in there, run the engine for a couple minutes just to get it cycled through the entire system, and then we should be all set with our fuel system. And last but not least, we will disconnect our battery. So Like any battery, just remember you want to disconnect your negative side first, then your positive side, and we will go ahead and use a 7/16 wrench to get that guy off. Ooh, a little bit of corrosion on that guy right there, but we'll go ahead and clean that up in a little bit. And we'll go ahead and take this guy indoors and store him inside so that way the cold doesn't degrade this guy any more than it needs to. We have a date code of March of 2019, so when we go to fire up back in the spring, it'll be spring of 21, so 2 years old. Shouldn't be too bad, but what I'll plan on doing is throwing this guy on the battery tender the night before I'm going to go and try to fire her up and go from there. And one last important note that you guys will see on here is I always try to leave notes on my equipment with engines on it just so that I know the status of it when I go to start it in the spring. So here we know that our oil's good. We'll need to throw some gas in there, toss the battery back in. I put sharpened blades with a question mark. I'll examine these guys in the spring, take a look, see if we can get away with a sharpening, or it's been a couple of years. We may need to bite the bullet and buy some new blades because we may not have enough material to continue grinding that down. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and throw the cover on her. And with that, we're ready for winter. So I knew I threw a blanket on, and with an uninsulated garage, I guess I'm really just keeping any dust and debris off during the winter, but I feel as though, hey, if you got something, why not put it on, try to keep the lawnmower a little bit warm, but we'll see. That's just what I do. But with that, we're all set. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this helped you if you're a new homeowner, first time power equipment owner as well. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any other methods of storing your equipment over the winter time. I know I didn't cover sharpening the blades, but I usually do that in the spring. But if you guys have anything else, let me know. Always willing to learn and see what other strategies are out there. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.